Very prideful of our punctuality with this company. This little ticket booth right here where you may have bought. Beautiful. Yep. All right, guys, hang on. We're taking off. Now everybody look to your right. Look all the way down the end of this little street. Built in 1890. It started out as our post office. Then it became a courthouse. Today it's an art and history museum. If you go in there, you can see an actual bloody uniform that Ernest Hemingway wore when he was in the Italian army. A couple of antique cannons. Behind those cannons is Mel Fisher's Maritime Museum. It all started in 1622 when the Spanish galleon known as the Ntxhee sank about 30 miles west of us. In 1985, Mel Fisher and his band of treasure hunters found $400 million worth of sunken treasure. A lot of gold, a lot of silver, and a lot of emeralds. A lot of it still displayed in there. If you take the tour, you can buy an actual gold coin from the Ntxhee, minted presidents such as Taft, Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, and of course Harry Truman. Guys, Harry Truman spent 11 working vacations in Key West, and if you go 2 blocks up that street, you'll be at Harry Truman's little White House, a very presidential museum. If you look to my left, you're going to see a big, beautiful banyan tree. That's a member of the ficus family. It's over 100 years old. We think it's the biggest one on the island. What's unique about the banyan tree is how the roots grow down to the outer limbs. As soon as they touch the soil, they form another trunk. So that tree, Highway number 1 north. Highway 1 runs from Key West all the way up to its cold edge in Fort Kent, Maine. That's 2,300 miles north. Now guys, this entire tour is given in Old Town Key West. And Old Town Key West is a historic preservation district. Of the nearly 3,000 structures here in Old Town, 10% are on the National Register of Historic Places. Key West has the largest collection of 19th century architecture anywhere in America. So what that means to you is I'm going to be showing you a lot of different types of houses, a lot of different styles of architecture. Most of our buildings were built by shipbuilders in the middle of 1800s. Those shipbuilders from all over the world, hence we have so many different styles of buildings. If you look across the street to my right, you'll see the Marquesa. It used to be a hotel, today it's a restaurant. Look to the left of those double mahogany doors, you see a little rectangular brass sign. That sign tells you that that building is on the National Register of Historic Places. You're going to see a lot of those today. The first style of house I want to show you is called New England Revival style. It's one on the right, the gray house with the black shutters. Notice how the upstairs porch mimics the downstairs porch in size, shape, and placement of doors and windows. The house with the purple shutters is also New England Revival style. Notice how everything lines up and is exactly the same on both floors. So all these houses together are considered conch houses. And the conch house on the corner is a Bahama style conch house. Notice how both porches wrap around 2 sides, shading the windows, which is a way to keep the house cool to create electricity and air conditioning. The big pink building to my right is our Key West Library. It was built in 1959. South Florida has one of the oldest library systems in the continental United States. Now behind our library sits a palm garden with 25 different varieties of palm trees. It's a great place to rest, relax, read a book, or nurse a hangover. The next style of house I want to show you is called a zigzag design. There's one coming up here on the left. The second house in on the left is a little greenhouse with a blue flag hanging off the front porch. Now look down the side, you'll see the zigzag design roof line. And as families grew, the houses also needed to. The zigzag addition proved to be a very beneficial addition. Hot air would rise up into those high peaks, which helped keep the house cooler. And rainwater was easy to collect as it ran down the low metal valleys of the roof. That style of house, also known as the sawtooth design. At the turn of the century, when sponging was $1 million business, spongers would use a glass bottom bucket to locate the sponges in our shallow waters, and a long forked pole to pull them up from those waters. In the mid-1800s, Key West was the #1 supplier of sponges in the continental United States. Then in 1938, a red tide came in and wiped out all the sponge beds. The sponge business slowly died out. Those sponge beds have since came back. We get to stop number 4 at the end of the tour. To be at the sponge market, you can buy an authentic natural Key West sponge. look to your left, check out this two-story White House, and once you look right up under the porch and look at the ceilings, you're going to notice they're both painted a light blue color. Now they tell me if you paint your ceiling light blue in Key West, it's going to confuse the birds and the bees. They won't build a nest up there because they think that's open air or open water. It seems to work because almost every house paints their ceiling light blue in Key West. This beautiful home on the corner was built in the late 1800s by Thomas Thompson. His son Narbert built a beautiful schooner, the Western Union. That's a Bahama-style house. Over here on the right, check out the big red tree in the driveway there. It's called a gumbo limbo tree. We like to call it the tourist tree because of its red peeling bark. Newtown, Key West, and everything to my left, that's considered Newtown. So why do they call it Newtown? That's because it used to be all swampland over here. Unusable, unbuildable swampland. Then in the 1940s, the Army Corps of Engineers began dredging the waters around Key West and filling in that swamp. Well, they ended up doubling the size of our island. The island is now 1.5 by 4 miles wide, and 25,000 people call Key West home. The house is right here on the right. Look at the size of that beige behemoth. No wonder it took so long to move. The Gattos donated that to the Cuban poor, and they turned it into a hospital, which it stayed until 1971. It was called Mercedes Hospital. They start. There's over 600 varieties of fish in Key West waters. Right in front of the White Street Pier is an AIDS memorial. It was built in 1997 to honor the people in Key West that died from AIDS. Over to my left is the African Cemetery at Higgs Beach, in honor of slaves that died on a ship that the U.S. Navy intercepted on its way to Cuba. They actually buried them right there. Right behind that's the West Portillo Tower. It's one of the 3 ex-military forts on the island. Built in the mid-1800s, this fort was never armed, it was never even finished. It's now property of the Key West Garden Club. If you look to my left, you'll see Higgs Beach, and Higgs Beach is one of our very beautiful man-made beaches. Why do we have a man-made beach on an island? Guys, that's because 7 miles off our shore sits the 3rd largest barrier reef in the entire world. And guys, when you got a barrier reef off your shore, you don't get any waves. If you don't get any waves, you don't get any sand. If you don't have any sand, how the heck are you going to have a beach? So what do? We bring this sand in from Miami. We used to ship it here from the Bahamas. Still a very beautiful beach. Water temperature today is at 86 degrees. And guys, unlike Iowa, you can swim every day in the Atlantic Ocean. Now if you look straight ahead, you'll see the Casa Marina Hotel. Built in the early 1920 by the Flagler Corporation. Henry Flagler, he owned the Florida East Coast Railway. It ran from St. Augustine down the Homestead. Now he built this beautiful hotel for his upscale train passengers. When it first opened, if you didn't have a train ticket, you couldn't even stay. Comes the very first passenger on the very first train to ever come into Key West. Now 1 year later, 1913, Henry Flagler died. It's the richest city in America per capita, and that it was mainly due to our shipwrecking industry. Guys, as often as 1 or 2 times a week, a ship would run aground on that barrier reef 7 miles out. When a wreck was spotted, a cry would go out through the town and sounded something like this. Now at that time, every able-bodied boy and man on the island with a boat, they would head out towards the shipwreck. First one to get there would save the passengers, then they would hold full salvage rights to the ship. The shipwrecking industry was heavily regulated by our federal courts, and Key West is the only city in the continental United States that have an actual shipwrecking court. Guys, shipwrecking was a huge part of our economy back in the late 1800s. It's a big rock. What he did find, though, was a group of islands 60 miles west of us known as the Dry Tortugas. One of those islands is called Garden Key, and on that island sits Fort Jefferson. It's the largest brick structure in North America. Now, every day they run tours out there, and if you get a chance, I highly recommend it. It's a great reef to dive, and the history out there is just amazing. The guys further south is the Judge's House. We like to call that the southernmost house. These guys right here are the southernmost tourists, and up here in the corner is the southernmost buoy. You're now 90 miles from Havana, Cuba. Ma'am, you gotta sit down. I can't move, please. No problem. I understand. So yeah, we're 90 miles to Cuba. We're actually closer to Cuba right now than we are to a Walmart. That's right, 90 miles south of Cuba, 137 miles north before you get to a Walmart. No Walmarts in the Keys. We won't let them in. Zero, the most photographed sign in the entire Florida Keys. Right up here on the right, under the N1 sign. Not only is it the most photographed sign, guys, it also happens to be the most stolen sign in the Florida Keys. Remember Fort Kent, Maine? 2,300 miles to the north is where U.S. Highway number 1 ends. This is the end. She'll forever be in your scrapbook. Now, we just turned right on Simon Street. This street's named after John Simon. He's one of the, he actually purchased the Key West from a Spaniard by the name of Juan Pablo Salas in 1822. Guys, he paid 2,000 pesos for the whole island. I think he got a pretty good deal. If you went to Mexico right now, you can't even buy a loaf of bread for 2,000 pesos. So coming up on the right, you're going to see 5 black mahogany trees in a row. The city planted hundreds of mahoganies around the island during that beautification period in 1935. And right here on the right, behind them stands the oldest church structure on the island. It's called the United Methodist Church. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers that absolutely gorgeous actress by the name of Jane Mansfield. She got married there. That church should be a wooden church. They built the stone church right around it, took the wooden church apart piece by piece out through the front door, never missing a Sunday Mass during the entire construction. Right up until 1974 was the U.S. Navy base. That made the 600 block of Duval Street a pretty wild and crazy place. It was so wild and crazy, Key West children weren't allowed to walk down here morning, noon, or night. They were going to the end of the street, they had to go all the way around the block. And that's because the street was full of brothels and bars and strip clubs and tattoo parlors and saloons. However, when the Navy left town in 1974, a lot of businesses went bankrupt. A lot of buildings fell into ill repair. Well, Key West came up with a novel idea to get the buildings up and running. They sold them at far under market value. Some went for as little as $1. The only condition was they had to be up to code within a year. Well, anyway, the Navy's back in town, and the 600 block of Duval Street is doing just fine. Brick wall will be Ernest Hemingway house. Built in 1851 by Asa Tift. He was a shipbuilder by trade. The Hemingway didn't own it until 1931. If you look across the wall to my left, you'll see the beautiful two-story structure. Check out that upstairs balcony. It goes around all 4 sides. Hemingway lived here 9 years. He wrote 9 best-selling novels out of that house. Hemingway quit the womanizer. He was actually married 4 times. He loved to hunt. He loved to fish. He knew the waters all the way from here to Cuba. Now, Hemingway was not born in Key West. He was actually born in a suburb outside of Chicago. Born in 1899, he died in 1961. He died by committing suicide at his house up in Ketchum, Idaho. Look at the white picket fence. Check out the white spindle porch rails and the silver metal roofs. Guys, almost every house here in Old Town Key West has an assessed value of $1 million or more. Not every single house, but just about. So guys, they tell me there's 100 lanes on the island. That's where I come from, we just call them alleys. And just to show you that we don't waste any space here, I'm going to point out the very narrow Hibiscus Lane. It's right here on your left, and you're never going to believe they fit 5 houses down there. We pack them in like sardines. I'm sorry, guys. Now, we talked several times how all these buildings were built by shipbuilders. As you can imagine, they use a lot of ship design elements in the building of their houses. We've even talked about a couple of them already. Now, coming up on the end of the street on the left, a little yellow house with green shutters, you're going to see a house with 3 ship scuttles up on the roof. If you don't know what a scuttle is, you will in just a moment. Yellow house, green shutters to my left. Look up on the roof, you'll see the 3 ship scuttles. Now, guys, that proved to be a very beneficial addition because those scuttles you can open up at night and let all the hot air out of your house. Also let the cool trade winds come in. If you look across the street to my right, you'll see what was once a Cuban consulate, built in 1890. If you look upstairs under